Good afternoon and welcome to Fulton County Library System's Adult Book Break. Welcome. My name is Michelle Bennett Copeland and I'm your host today. I thank you for taking time to join us. Another Thursday, we made it. Another 4 o'clock time, we made it. And we're glad to have you. Let's allow a few of our friends to join us this afternoon. And I hope that you enjoyed the book that I selected that I thought would be very fitting for our current times of new norm. Again, welcome. Welcome to Fulton County Library System's Adult Book Break. We're so happy that you took time to join us. And again, happy Thursday. Happy 4 o'clock. We made it to another Thursday, another 4 o'clock. I'm Michelle Bennett Copeland, and I see we have a few people logged on. We're going to give a few more. Go ahead and tell a friend it's time. It's time to log on for our adult book break. While we wait for some friends, please be mindful. It's summer reading. Summer reading is not just for children, it's for adults too. And to record your book so you can feel proud of yourself at the end of the summer for all of your reading accomplishments, log into Beanstack. Fulton County Beanstack.org. We hope you join us in Beanstack with documenting your books so you will feel rewarded at the end of the summer. Again, I'm Michelle Bennett and I thank you for joining us. Michelle Bennett Copeland. The book that I selected this special Thursday, is Who Moved My Cheese? An amazing way to deal with change in your work and your life. I felt this book was fitting. This is a book that was written several years ago. However, I thought it was very fitting for our current times right now with our new norm and our forced change, our forced way of thinking, forced way of working, our forced way of living. So those of us who didn't appreciate change so much, we are now forced to change, and Who Moved Our Cheese is going to help us accept change in a better way. This book is written by Spencer Johnson, MD, and the foreword is by Ken Blanchard, Dr. Ken Blanchard. Let me just give you a little information about Patrick Spencer Johnson, who is our author. Patrick Spencer Johnson was an American physician and author known for the valued tale of his children's books and for his 1998 self-help book, Who Moved My Cheese, which recurred on the New York Times bestseller list, as well as the Publishers Weekly hardcover nonfiction list. Johnson was also the chair of Spencer Johnson Partners. Johnson also wrote the book Yes or No, The Guide to Better Decisions, and that book was published in 1992. And it was co-authored by Ken Blanchard, and they wrote the books together, 1 Minute Manager. Johnson's latest book, Out of the Maze, is a sequel of Who Moved My Cheese that referenced Johnson's struggle with cancer. And this ultimately, he wrote that book up until his death in 2017. So the book entitled Out of the Maze, that was published in 2018. And Who Moved My Cheese, this is translated into 26 different languages. Therefore, this is something that I feel that we all can relate to, whoever we are. I'm going to dive right into this book. I wish I had time to read the entire book to you because it's so interesting. And we do carry it at our library, so we'll talk about that a little bit later after I dive into this book, because I know you're going to enjoy it. Who Moved My Cheese? Once, long ago, in a land far away, there lived 4 characters who ran through a maze looking for cheese to nourish them and make them happy. 2 were mice named Sniff and Scurry, and 2 were little people, beings who were as small as mice but who looked and acted a lot like people today. Their names were Him and Haw. Due to their small size, it would be easy not to notice what the four of them were doing. But if you look closely enough, you could discover the most amazing things. Every day, the mice and the little people spent time in the maze looking for their own special cheese. The mice sniff and scurry, possessing simple brains and good instincts, search for the hard, nibbling cheese they like, as mice often do. The two little people, Ham and Haw, use their complex brains, filled with many beliefs and emotions, to search for a very different kind of cheese with a capital C, which they believe would make them feel happy and successful. As different as the mice and the little people were, they shared something in common. Every morning, they each put on their jogging suits and running shoes, left their little homes, and raced out into the maze looking for their favorite cheese. The maze was a labyrinth of corridors and chambers, some containing delicious cheese. But there were also dark corners and blind alleys leading nowhere. It was an easy place for anyone to get lost. However, for those who found their way, the maze held secrets that let them enjoy a better life. The mice, sniff, and scurry used the simple trial and error method of finding cheese. They ran down one corridor, and if it proved empty, they turned and they ran down another. They remembered the corridors that held no cheese and quickly went to new areas. So they clearly were okay with change. Sniff would smell out the general direction of the cheese using his great nose, and Scurry would race ahead. They got lost, as you would expect, went off in the wrong direction and often bumped into walls. But after a while, they found their way. Like the mice, the two little people, Him and Haw, also used their ability to think and learn from their past experiences. However, they relied on their complex brains to develop more sophisticated methods of finding cheese. Sometimes they did well, but at other times, their powerful human beliefs and emotions took over and clouded the way they looked at things. It made life in the maze more complicated and challenging. Nonetheless, Sniff, Scurry, Him, and Hall all discovered in their own way what they were looking for. They each found their own kind of cheese one day at the end of one of the corridors in Cheese Station C. Every morning after that, the mice and the little people dressed in their running gear and headed over to Cheese Station C. It wasn't long before they each established their own routine. Sniff and Scurry continued to wake early every day and race through the maze, always following the same route. When they arrived at their destination, the mice took off their running shoes, tied them together, and hung them around their necks so they could get to them quickly whenever they needed them again. Then they enjoyed the cheese. In the beginning, Him and Hall also raced toward Cheese Station C every morning to enjoy the new tasty morsels that awaited them. But after a while, a different routine set in for the little people. Him and Hall awoke each day a little bit later, dressed a little bit slower, and walked instead of running. They now walk to Cheese Station C because they had become comfortable. After all, they knew where Cheese Station C was now, and they knew exactly how to get there. They had no idea where the cheese came from or who put it there. They just assumed it would always be there. As soon as Him and Hall arrived at Cheese Station C each morning, they settled in and made themselves at home. They hung up their jogging suits, put away their running shoes, and put on their slippers. They were becoming very, very comfortable now that they had found the cheese. This is great, Him said. There's enough cheese here to last us forever. Well, the little people felt happy. They felt successful. And they thought that they were now secure. That kind of sounds like us sometimes. It wasn't long before him and Hall regarded the cheese they found at Cheese Station C as their cheese. It was such a large store of cheese that they eventually moved their homes to be closer to it and built a social life around it. To make themselves feel more at home, him and Hall decorated the walls and sinks and even drew pictures of cheese around them, which made them smile. One of the pictures read, "Having cheese makes you happy." Sometimes him and Hall would take their friends by to see their pile of cheese at Cheese Station C and point to it with pride, saying, "Pretty nice cheese, huh?" Well, sometimes they shared it with their friends and sometimes they didn't. "We deserve this cheese," him said. "We certainly had to work long and hard to find it." He picked up a nice fresh piece, boop, and ate it. Afterwards, him fell asleep as often as he did. Every night, the little people would waddle home full of cheese, and every morning they would confidently return for more. This went on for quite some time, and after a while, him and Hall's confidence grew into an arrogance of success. Soon they became so comfortable they didn't even notice what was happening right under their nose. As time went on, Sniff and Scurry continued their routine. They arrived early each morning and sniffed around, scurried around Cheese Station C, inspecting the area. They checked around to see if anything had changed, anything they need to look out for. And one day, they they noticed something a little different. However, they first sat down and nibbled just on a little cheese. On a morning they arrived at Cheese Station C, they discovered there was no cheese. They weren't surprised, since Sniff and Scurry had noticed the supply of cheese had begun smaller and smaller every day. They were prepared for the inevitable and knew instinctively exactly what to do. Well, they looked at each other, removed the running shoes that they had tied around their neck because they were ready to go anytime or at any moment something changed. And they put their shoes on their feet and laced them up. The mice did not overanalyze anything. To the mice, the problem and the answer were both simple. The situation at Cheese Station C had changed. So, Sniff and Scurry, they decided to change. They both looked out into the maze. Then Sniff took off running through the maze while Scurry followed as fast as he could. They were quickly off in search of new cheese. Later that day, him and Hall arrived at Cheese Station C. They had not been paying attention. Well, they didn't pay attention to the small things that they could have noticed every day that they visited Cheese Station C. They took it for granted that the cheese would be there every time. They were so comfortable. They were unprepared for what they found. "What? No cheese?" Him yelled. He continued yelling, "No cheese!" as though he shouted loud enough for someone to bring it back. "Who moved my cheese?" he hollered. Finally, he put his hands on his hips, his face turned red, and he screamed to the top of his lungs, "It's not fair!" Hall just shook his head in disbelief. He too had counted on finding cheese at Cheese Station C. He stood there for a long time, frozen with shock. He was just not ready for this. Him was yelling something, but Hall didn't want to hear it. He didn't want to deal with what was facing him. So he just tuned everything out. The little people's behavior was not very attractive or productive, but it was understandable. Finding cheese wasn't easy, and it meant a great deal more to the little people than just having enough of it to eat every day. Finding cheese was the little people's way of getting what they thought they needed to be happy. They had their own ideas of what cheese meant to them depending on their taste. For some, finding cheese was having material things. For others, it was enjoying good health or developing a spiritual sense of well being. Well, for Hall, cheese just meant feeling safe, having a lovely family someday, and living in a cozy cottage on Cheddar Lane. To him, cheese was becoming a big cheese in charge of others and owning a big house at the top of the hill. Because cheese was important to them. The two little people spent a long time trying to decide what to do. All they could think of was to keep looking around cheeseless Station C to see is it really gone? While Sniff and Scurry had quickly moved on, him and Hall, they continued to him and Hall. They ranted and raved at the injustice of it all. Hal started to get depressed. What would happen if the cheese wasn't there tomorrow? He had made future plans based on this cheese. The little people, they just couldn't believe it. How could this have happened? No one had warned them. It wasn't right. It was not the way things were supposed to be. Him and Hall went home that night hungry and discouraged. But before they left, Hall wrote on the wall, the more important your cheese is to you, the more you want to hold on to it. Him and Hall reminds me of people. And Sniff and Scurry, they remind me of people as well. So which one is better? We have so many unique ways of thinking and unique ways of operating. There is not a right or wrong. However, this book is definitely a way for us to think about change and help us to better understand and receive change when we're forced into it, just like we are right now. I'm going to read just a couple of more pages to you, 3 more pages, and we'll stop because you must pick up this book. I think it's very fitting for what we all are experiencing right now. So, moving on. The next day, him and Hall left their homes and returned to Cheese. They're still returning to Cheese Station C again and again, where they still expected somehow, some way to find their cheese. The situation had not changed. The cheese was no longer there. The little people didn't know what to do. Him and Hall just stood there, immobilized like two statues. Hall shut his eyes as tight as he could and put his hands over his ears. He just wanted to block out everything. He didn't want to know the cheese supply had gradually been getting smaller and smaller right under his nose. He believed it had all moved suddenly. Him analyzed the situation over and over and over, and eventually his complicated brain with its huge belief system took hold. Why did you do this to me? He demanded. What's really going on here? Finally, Hall opened his eyes, looked around, and said, by the way, where's Sniff and Scurry? Do you think they know something we don't? Him scoffed. What would they know? Him continued. They're just simple mice. They just respond to what happens. We're little people. We're smarter than mice. We should be able to figure this out. I know we're smarter, Hall said, but we don't seem to be acting smarter at the moment. Things are changing around here. Him. Maybe we need to change and do things differently. Why should we change? Him asked. We're little people, we're special. This sort of thing should not happen to us. Or if it does, we should at least get some benefits. Why should we get benefits? Hall asked. Because we are entitled, Him claimed. Entitled to what? Hall wanted to know. We are entitled to our cheese. Why? Hall asked. Because we did not cause this problem, Him said. Somebody else did this, and we should get something out of it. Hall suggested maybe we should just simply stop analyzing the situation so much and go and find some new cheese. Oh no, Him argued. I'm going to get to the bottom of this. While Him and Hall were still trying to decide what to do, Sniff and Scurry were already well on their way. They went farther into the maze, up and down the corridors, looking for cheese in every cheese station that they could find. They didn't think of anything else but finding new cheese. They didn't find any for some time until they finally went into an area of the maze where they had never been before. Cheese Station Inn. They squealed with delight. They found what they had been looking for, a great supply of new cheese. They could hardly believe their eyes. It was the biggest store of cheese the mice had ever seen. In the meantime, Him and Hall were still back in Cheese Station C, evaluating their situation. They were now suffering from the effects of having no cheese. They were becoming frustrated and angry and blaming each other for the situation they were in. Now and then, Hall thought about his mice friends Sniff and Scurry and wondered if they had found any cheese yet. He believed they might be having a hard time as running through the maze usually involves some uncertainty. But he also knew that it was likely only to last for a while. Sometimes Hall would imagine Sniff and Scurry finding new cheese and enjoying it. He thought about how good it would be for him to be out on an adventure and in the maze and to find fresh new cheese. He could almost taste it. The more clearly Hall saw the image of himself finding and enjoying the new cheese, the more he saw himself leaving Cheese Station C. Let's go, he exclaimed all of a sudden. No, Him quickly responded. I like it here. It's comfortable. It's what I know. Besides, it's dangerous out there. No, it isn't, Hall argued. We've run through many parts of the maze before, and we can do it again. I'm getting too old for that, Him said, and I'm afraid I'm not interested in getting lost and making a fool of myself. Are you? With that, Hall's fear of failing returned and hope of finding new cheese faded away. So every day, the little people continued to do what they had done before. They went to Cheese Station C and they continued to find no cheese and returned home cheeseless. They tried to deny what was happening, but found it harder and harder to sleep and had less energy the next day and becoming very irritable. Their homes were now not the nurturing places they once were. The little people had difficulty sleeping and they were actually having nightmares about not finding any cheese. You know, I could read this entire book. I wish we had more time to spend together. However, I suggest to you, because we are all in this together, we have a new norm and we are forced to change our ways. And this is a very great book, easy read, thin, and my book is kind of beat up. I've had it for some time. However, it's an easy read and it's very applicable of what we are experiencing right now today. We are forced to change. And of course, we all love our comfortable ways, our habits, because it makes us feel comfortable. However, we have to make sure we don't get so comfortable that we have a sense of arrogance like him and Hall felt at one point when they were right in at the top of their cheese. So again, I suggest to you Who Moved My Cheese by Spencer Johnson. The foreword is by Ken Blanchard, Dr. Ken Blanchard. They are the co-authors of The 1 Minute Manager. These are very good self-help books. And since we are not open inside of our building, you can download this book with Libby, Who Moved My Cheese. So please download the Libby app and you can finish enjoying this story. I hope Sniff and Scurry, him and Har, they're waiting for you to check out this book because I think that this is something you would enjoy. And I'm going to continue to read on after I log off because change is not easy. However, right now we're forced into it, and there might be a him or a Hall watching right now. However, we're going to have to be more like Sniff and Scurry and be ready to change just like that, like we were forced to do or are forced to do right now. And this is something that will help you, help me, not only at work, but at home and just with dealing with each other every day. Thank you for being with us today with Fulton County Library System Adult Book Break. My name is Michelle Bennett Copeland. Thank you for taking time to spend with us. And remember, it's summer reading. Imagine your story. Please log on to Beanstack, fultoncounty.beanstack.org to document your books that you are reading this summer so you will feel rewarded. Thank you for joining us. And remember, Who Moved My Cheese? Download the Libby app if you don't already have it. You can download it to your Kindle or to your phone. And we do have this book available, so please check it out with your library card. If you don't have a card, you can always get a temporary card online by visiting our website. Thank you again for joining us and have a great weekend. We are closed tomorrow, July 3rd, for the holiday. However, we will see you again Monday. And over the weekend, see what other virtual programs we have, download some books, and just spend your weekend with us. And we'll see you again next week. Thank you and have an awesome day.